Support for this podcast and the following message come from Allianz Travel Insurance. Sometimes exploring the unknown gets a little too unpredictable. When your travels get off track, protection against delays, interruptions, and cancellations can help. Learn more at AllianzTravelInsurance.com.
Heads up, there's some salty language in this episode. Hey everyone, you're listening to Code Switch, the show about race and identity from NPR. I'm B.A. Parker. And we're bringing you something special today from our play cousin, Nicole Hill. She's a storyteller and podcast host that explores the gossip and scandals of those that came before us by going through archival Black newspapers. Nicole has a podcast series out now called Our Ancestors Were Messy. We're going to share the first in a two-part series about best friends turned not friends, Zora, Neale, Hurston, and Langston Hughes. Nicole gets into the drama with artist, writer, and facilitator Alicia Walters.
This is Our Ancestors Were Messy, a show about our ancestors and all their drama.
Girl, I understand.
This message comes from Schwab. Everyone has moments when they could have done better. Same goes for where you invest. Level up and invest smarter with Schwab. Get market insights, education, and human help when you need it. This message comes from LPL Financial. What if you could have more control over your future? LPL Financial removes the things holding you back and provides the services to push you forward. Because when it comes to your finances, your business, your future, LPL Financial believes the only question should be, what if you could? LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal.
Support for NPR and the following message come from USPS. With USPS Ground Advantage service, it's like your shipment has a direct line to you. It leaves the dock, you know about it. It's on the road, you know. And when it reaches your customer, you guessed it, you're still in the know. Here's the real game changer. It's one journey, one partner, total peace of mind. Check out USPS Ground Advantage service at USPS.com/in-the-know. Because if you know, you know.
This message comes from Wise, the app for using money around the globe. When you manage your money with Wise, you'll always get the mid-market exchange rate with no hidden fees. Join millions of customers and visit wise.com. T's and C's apply.
Okay, so we'll now begin. It's July 23rd, 1927, and we are in Mobile, Alabama. Zora Neale Hurston, who is the star of our episode, lives in New York City, but she's always traveling all over America exploring. She's a cultural anthropologist and a folklorist, and she has secured some funding to go down south and do two things. She's starting it in her home state of Florida, and her goal is to do two things. She wants to collect Black folklore and oral histories and interview some of the last survivors of slavery. And that's on the kind of folklore side. And on the anthropology side, she wants to demonstrate the sophistication of Black culture, because there's this very popular belief right now that Black people are culturally and genetically inferior. So she's got funding to prove that that is obviously stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we are. She's doing this. She's down in Florida, and she's asking the elders if they'll share their stories with her for her research. And if you can believe it, these old Black people are like, no, I won't.
Mm-hmm.
You know our people.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know you. I don't trust you.
Literally.
Who you say
they're
you
like,
are?
Why? For what? No. So she's frustrated, but she's determined because she wants to show the world, especially the North, that the South is beautiful and full of culture and like changing everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So on this day in July, she's in Mobile, Alabama. She's 34, but she's pretending to be 24.
Cute.
More on that later.
Only Black people can do that.
I know. She's dark skinned too, so that's why it's possible.
Yeah. She's like, I'm good.
She's walking by a train station, and then who should emerge from it but Langston Hughes?
Stop.
In the middle of Mobile.
Wow.
So Langston's 23. He's actually 22. More on that later. And he also lives in New York, and he's traveled the world, but never the South. And so he decided to take this trip, starting in New Orleans, where he was reading poetry, and then he's just going to explore, vibe out, That's what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're really surprised to run into each other. They're very happy to see each other. She's like, Langston, go get your stuff. We're going to go eat. This is what they decide to eat. They feast in public on a meal of fried fish and watermelon. Yeah, this is what they do. So it is a weird thing for two Black people to be doing this in 1927, to be eating watermelon in public. We know that post-slavery, Black folks were making good money selling watermelon. Then people started putting that in their minstrel shows and making fun of it. And so it is something that at this time you're meant to be ashamed of. But Zora and Langston are 20-somethings, and they enjoy not just being provocative, they enjoy being disreputable.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just like, we're eating watermelon in front of everybody, especially Zora. She has this big thing against code switching or changing up anything for white people. She's like, if I would do it in front of Black people, I'm doing it in front of white people, and that's it. So they're eating fish and watermelon. They're catching each other up on their trips through the South. And at some point, they come up with this idea. This is part one of a two-part story of the loving friendship turned bitter feud between Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you for the sound effects. Zora and Langston, they have a little something to prove. They are in the midst of what I like to call an intergenerational showdown. In one corner, you've got the old heads. These are the enslaved and their kids. The stars of this group right now, W.B. Du Bois and Alan Locke. Let's talk about Alan. He spells his name is Alan, but he spells it Elaine because he is a dapper Howard University philosophy professor, the first Black Rhodes Scholar, graduated from Harvard. Very, very bougie. And he believes in this wild new slogan that Marcus Garvey has been saying all over town, which is Black is beautiful. They're like, huh. And then at the same time, W.B. Du Bois is telling people all art is propaganda. So Alan thinks if Black people could show the world how beautiful we are through our art, we could change the course of Black history. And he's like, movies and plays, they do that. They have that kind of power. Books, all of these things change people's perceptions of the world. So he's like, attention, all Black artists. I need you to turn your pain into art that's going to evoke tears of shame in white people. It needs to be like Shakespeare, but it has to be better. And then I'm going to showcase the art and introduce the world to our talented tent. And then white America will accept our best, and then our best will open the door for the rest.
If only.
And the motto that pretty much every educated Black person is living by at this time is we lift as we climb. So you need to get to the top of this ladder, and then you need to trick these people into accepting us, and then you need to let everybody else in. This is the idea. So Alan throws this very fancy dinner party in New York City called the Opportunity Dinner. There's 100 Black artists there, and they share their short stories and their poems and all their art, and they get a bunch of awards. The audience is made up of white publishers and rich white people, members of the press. And everybody's like, oh my God, these Black people are making such beautiful art up in Harlem. We can't believe it. Did you even know that they could do that? And then Alan publishes a book with all these artists called The New Negro. And so everybody calls this artistic explosion in Harlem the New Negro movement. And they call Alan Locke the father of the movement. And he is like, welcome to the Renaissance. That's their strategy. Now we're going to meet their counterparts. These are the New Negroes. Their stars are Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes. They're born decades after Alan and W.B. Du Bois. Zora and Langston won the most awards at the Opportunity Dinner, but there are a bunch of other artists, part of the New Negro crew. And they like to party together. They like to hang out in this apartment in Harlem that they say is like covered in drawings of penises.
I didn't know that detail.
Yeah. Everybody's calling them the New Negroes and the Talented Tenth. They're like, hate it. Zora nicknames them the Niggerati, and they love it.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
And she nicknames their hangout spot Niggerati Manor.
Is she the only woman? Are there other women in this mix?
No, there's a bunch of other women too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They don't want to be highbrow. They don't want to be respectable. Their philosophy is like, why would anybody need to be told that Black is beautiful? We already know that. But they're also decades after slavery. So they're like, ugh, okay, boomers, everybody knows that Black is beautiful. But It's not beautiful because we can write like Shakespeare and that we only talk about justice. It's beautiful. Black is beautiful when it's like raw and when it reflects the real and the honest experiences of the proletariat. And they're very, very into communism. The new Negroes hang out in these like smoky jazz clubs and they grind on each other at sweaty apartment parties. And they drink and they smoke and they wander the streets of New York. They sleep with whoever they want. They talk plain. And then they put all of that in their art. And they're like, this is what it is to be Black. So instead of the Opportunity Dinner, which led to the Harlem Renaissance, that's what sparked it, they decide to publish a literary magazine that they name Fire because it's going to burn out the old way of thinking and usher in the new. So here are some of the stories from that inaugural issue. It's a very tender story about a young Black girl who, through the sweetest, most innocent misunderstanding, becomes a sex worker. Poems about Black folks working low-wage jobs, liking attention, wandering around New York City. All of it's written very plainly, easy to understand. A really beautiful story about this unemployed artist who's just floating around New York. It seems like he's high, and he's spending one night sleeping with his boyfriend, and then the next night he's on a date with his girlfriend, and he's marveling at the fact that he can love them both so much.
This could be today. Could be today. I love it.
They put out Fire, and because they are these stars, they're the new Negroes, everyone reads it. All the Black newspapers cover it. I'm going to send you a link to a review that reflects the response. On page 1, you'll find the review from the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper, which is one of the most read newspapers in America at the time.
Wow. I have just tossed the first issue of Fire into the fire and watched the crackling flames leap and snarl as though they were trying to swallow some repulsive dose.
The old heads, they drag it.
Dragged it.
They're like, it is 1926. We are in the middle of a race war. Black people are quite literally, being hunted for sport. And you think real and raw is going to help with that. We need to lift as we climb. You need to knock it off. And the new Negroes, again, they're like, okay, boomers, we're onto something. We're doing the right thing. But they can't find an audience because Black people are like, why would we want to be reflected this way? So they don't really buy it. And then they can't find financing. And then an actual fire burns up all the reserve copies of the magazine and it folds after just one issue.
Wow. I mean, I feel like this is the age-old, like, we're fighting for our humanity by painting us in this exceptional light, or we're fighting for our humanity that actually looks like the messiness of our humanity. This is, I feel like it's this constant, it's happening today.
So the combined experiences of the Opportunity Dinner and Fire, and probably a bunch of other things, serve as this call to action to a young Zora and Langston. And they're determined to tell stories about Black life that they feel that the movement is leaving behind. So now it's a year later, and Zora and Langston have run into each other down in Mobile. Because they had both been working on Fire, but like at different times, they hadn't had a chance to like really connect. But now they're here in Mobile together. They're eating watermelon. They're talking about this tour of the South that they're both on. And then I imagine Zora saying, you know what, Langston? We should travel from Alabama to New York City together. I have this car. It looks like a Model T. She's named it Sassy Susie. It maxes out at 45 miles per hour.
Ooh, I love it.
She says, you can help me collect folklore, and I will be your guide through the South. And I can also be your protector because Zora is strapped. She keeps it on, and she keeps that thing on her, right on her shoulder. And Langston is like, let's go. So he throws the stuff in the back of her car, and our ancestors start driving north through the South in search of funny, dirty, mystical stories about being Black. Now, something that doesn't come up on this road trip through the Deep South in 1927 is racism. Don't talk about it, except for one time when they're worried about being pulled over by the cops.
What about like sundown towns and shit? Like they gotta hustle through. She's only going 45 miles an hour.
They never mention it.
Like, here's how to stay safe. Let's not get lynched. Like, none of that.
None of it is mentioned.
That's my first question.
I know, right? I know. She is not mentioned in their story. So this story is not going to be about that, even though when I think about driving through the Deep South in 1927, but this is a little bit of Zora's style. to choose what things to focus on and what things to be like. It's not a problem if you don't believe it to be a problem. So
interesting. Okay.
Racism doesn't come up.
Zora.
Now, today we understand that Langston Hughes, we understand him to be gay, although he is very purposefully private about his sexuality. And he is experimenting, hooking up with the ladies occasionally at this time. So historians do speculate that like maybe there was like energy between them. So we don't know what happened between them, but Langston does make a list of things that he is seeing on the trip. And it's a very stream of consciousness list. And on it, it says Zora's bare front. We don't know what that means.
That's, you said we don't know what that means?
We don't. It could be.
We
what
know
could
what
it mean?
So who doesn't know what that means?
Historians are like, what could it be? But we are normal people and we know what it means. So they don't talk about messing around, though. So it's mainly just going to be like a buddy road trip story. As they speed along the Alabama countryside at 45 miles per hour, Zora might be mulling over what to say about the situation that she's gotten herself into. And she might be thinking, what am I going to do about this man that I randomly married a couple months ago?
Oh, shit.
Why did I do that?
Girl, I understand.
Man, I can act very passionately and decisively and not always in my own best interests. But I'm sure that's not going to be a problem with my fellow ingenue Langston Hughes. And then as they pass through the small towns on the brand new highways and byways of America, Langston Hughes might be thinking, man, I have a real tendency to get very flirty and tight with people and then push them away. And that has created some real issues for me. But I'm sure that will never be a problem with my new friend, Zora Neale Hurston. They continue driving.
He sounds like an avoidant, by the way, if we're talking about attachment styles.
If we're talking about attachment styles, then... So I'm going to tell you about 3 of their stops that they make that I just love. And I do think they solidified their friendship and eventually their troubles.
That's coming up. Stay with us.
This message comes from MIDI Health, introducing AgeWell, longevity care designed by women for women. Women can feel overlooked by the healthcare industry, especially when it comes to aging. MIDI Health offers personalized services conveniently accessible through telehealth visits and covered by major insurance providers. Your health is worth it. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from First Leaf. As summer evenings give way to the cool calm of fall, mark the season with wines made just for you. First Leaf makes it simple. Just take their quiz and personalized selections are delivered to your door. No wine aisle guessing, no errands, only wines you'll truly love. Savor autumn's arrival at tryfirstleaf.com/autumn with promo autumn. Your first 6 bottles are just $44.95. That's tryfirstleaf.com/autumn. This message comes from DSW. Where'd you get those shoes? Easy, they're from DSW. Because DSW has the exact right shoes for whatever you're into right now. You know, like the sneakers that make office hours feel like happy hour, the boots that turn grocery aisles into runways, and all the styles that show off the many sides of you. From daydreamer to multitasker and everything in between, because you do it all in really great shoes. Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store or dsw.com.
Parker. Just Parker. Code Switch. And we're digging into the messy friendship between Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes from the podcast Our Ancestors Were Messy, hosted by Nicole Hill. We pick back up as Zora and Langston are on a road trip through the South.
So stop number 1, Langston meets the folks in folklore. So a few days after linking up, our ancestors arrived to check out the Tuskegee Normal School for Colored Teachers, which is just shy of 50 years old. And we know it today, of course, as the Tuskegee Institute. Here, students are learning farming and vocational skills from former slave, turned president of the Institute, Booker T. Washington. He believes that vocational education is the best way to lift as we climb. The old heads, especially Zora and Langston's mentor, W.B. Du Bois, hate this way of thinking, and Booker T. But Langston has set up a meeting with him and his colleague, former slave turned scientist and father of the peanut, Dr. George Washington Carver.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, we don't care that you don't like him. I'm going to go meet up with him. So he kicks it with them, and Zora goes off to interview people and collect more folklore, and they agree to meet back up at the end of the week. And Zora doesn't record what she gets into, but Langston does, so we're going to follow him. Langston travels with the Tuskegee students to rural Alabama, where the school's doing outreach and teaching country folks, they say civilization. We hate that. But they go into this town called Berkeley, and Tuskegee students install toilets to replace the outhouses, and they build a foundation for a well. And then the Berkeley residents teach the students how to breed livestock, how to grow food, and how to care for newborns and the sick. Langston is a city Negro, so he can't really help with the manual labor thing or teaching livestock breeding or anything like that. But he does teach the young boys of Berkeley how to swim, and he leads lessons about great Negro men like the boxer Jack Johnson and the poet Paul Laurence Dunbar. And then at the end of the week, Langston writes a poem about the Alabama stars and the earth and the strength of Southern Negroes. You know how people get after a week in the country.
That's right.
So imagine that him and Zora are back together at the Tuskegee Institute. He's telling her all this, his experience in the South. She loves the South so much. She's so happy. So she says, okay, let's get into it. Let me tell you my backstory. So Zora's from the first all-Black incorporated town in America called Edenville, Florida, where she lived with her mom and her dad, who was a philandering preacher and the town's mayor. And she has maybe 8, maybe 4 siblings. She does tend to exaggerate the details of her life. They have enough to get by, probably not too much more. They're surrounded by Black people exclusively. And her father tries to warn her that the world isn't really like this. But Zora is basically like, okay, boomer. Her mother tells her she should jump at the sun every chance she gets. Zora grows into this voracious reader. She loves Gulliver's Travels, Greek and Roman mythology, The Jungle Book. But she's most mesmerized by listening to the adults gossip at the market and tell tales on the front porch. And she wants to be a storyteller like them with all eyes on her. So she dresses loud, she talks loud with this thick Southern accent that she never tries to hide. She just has a big appetite for everything. She wants to live. But then her mom dies and her father remarries very quickly, and Zora hates this woman. They physically fight. Zora does try to choke her out and needs to leave home. And it's when she left Eatonville that she learned what it actually meant to be Black in the South. And she has to contend with this really intense racism. But she develops this philosophy where she says she hates any kind of victim mentality. And she won't even pray because she feels like it's putting your fate in somebody else's hands. So she is determined to not be bothered by racism, to just keep it pushing. She's like, it's nothing. Just keep going. So Zora starts heading north after she leaves home in search of more education and training to be a storyteller, but she never has any money. She's always working a ton of jobs, and then she realizes that Black teens are getting really good free education at schools in Baltimore. So she pretends to be 16. She's 26.
Again.
Very never been kissed. Only possible with melanin.
Only possible with melanin. Exactly.
She successfully enrolls in high school, and then she never adds the 10 years back onto her age.
Because why?
Why?
Give me 10 more years of life.
Exactly. Zora graduates and moves to D.C. to go to Howard. You know! And she works as a maid, a waitress, and a manicurist to survive and pay tuition. She pledges Zeta. She starts the school's Hilltop student newspaper, and she writes for their literary magazine. And that's where she meets Alan Locke. He is her advisor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Alan has this attitude of like, I don't really think women have anything to contribute to this movement.
Shocking.
But he called her one of his best and brightest students that he'd ever had. In D.C., Zora gets along really well with the city's literary community, even though they're rich and very city, and she's poor and country. She'd show up to these parties and loudly announce, Queen Zora has arrived.
I love it, yes.
And everybody loves it. And one person that especially loves it is a musician studying medicine at Howard named Herbert Sheen. He and Zora start dating, and then he moves to Chicago, so they are long distance. Alan Locke tells Zora it's probably time for you to move to Harlem, get into that scene. She's like, you're right. She drops out of Howard and she moves to New York. And then she goes to the opportunity dinner that Alan had organized. And that night she meets one of the founders of Barnard College who offer her a scholarship to study anthropology. And in 1925, Zora becomes Barnard's first and only Black student. She says that she experiences a lot of racism, but that it doesn't bother her. She says she doesn't care. Again, she feels like if you complain or admit to it being a problem, then you're being a victim, and that your indifference is what robs racism of its power. So she just goes to Barnard. She lets one wealthy white donor introduce her to another. She goes to their parties and she regales them with the folklore and the stories of Blackness, and they eat it up and she feeds them more. And it's all a little problematic, but it does get her money, which she pours into writing these short stories and these one-act plays about the lives of, poor Black people in the South. And her work, she puts it out and it just keeps hitting. Zora is the moment.
Who does it hit with?
With everyone. It's hitting with white people. It's hitting with Black people. People are like, every Black paper is picking up her stories. Everybody loves it. And so
these are her folklore stories.
These are her short stories, her poems, her one-act plays. She's
everything
just writing everything. Yeah. And it's just somebody likes it, somebody loves it. A lot of white people love it. A lot of Black people love it. The Opportunity Dinner really did. I mean, the Opportunity Dinner sparked the New Negro movement, which is the Harlem Renaissance, but they called it the movement then. And so every artist out of there is like, who are you? Who are you? But Zora is like, oh my God, who is this woman? Yeah. So she's putting everything out. Big hit. All of it spoken in a Southern dialect about the messy, funny magic of being a Negro in the South. And so she's like having this amazing moment. And then there is Herbert. This is her boyfriend. They've been together for years at this point, and in the midst of her ascent, his sister, who Zora is really close to, is murdered. And she and Herbert divide and conquer all the legal paperwork and the funeral arrangements, which brings her closer to him and his family, and maybe contributes to their seemingly very random decision one day to get married. So the night before the wedding, here's what she tells him she dreams.
Ooh, shit. A dark barrier kept falling between us, and I sat up with the voice of your sister calling my name in the most unfriendly terms, commanding me to leave you alone. Leave you alone or suffer severe penalties. It was as vivid as noon. We appeared like shadowy figures seen through an opal. It was terrible. Oh, shit, that's the night before your wedding day?
That's the night before your wedding day. That's what she dreams. And then she wakes up and she marries him.
How many women have just kept the marriage going, even though, you just keep the wedding? That kind of is shocking to me, as independent of a thinker as she is, to have a dream like that. She seems like the kind of person that would be like, nope, it's off. Dream has spoken. But she went through with it. She was still a woman of her time.
Yep. The wedding is bad. The wedding night is bad. She says it feels like a mistake instantly.
Girl.
Herbert is like, do you want me to travel with you through the South and collect folklore, my wife? And she's like, okay. They do it. It's weird. He's like, I will leave. I'm going to go to Chicago. She's like, you go to Chicago. And then she heads to Mobile. She runs into Langston. Now we're all caught up. Being a poet, I would imagine that Langston listened very beautifully. He's like, everybody known for being mature for his time. And then maybe she was like, okay, I told you all my business. Now you tell me yours. But Langston's really famous for being very closed off and super, super private. But he was having some beef with Alan Locke. And so I bet Zora asked about it because Zora was just blunt in your face. But he wouldn't have told her right away. So they get back in the car. They get back on the road. Now we're going to stop number 2, which is collecting stories and people watching. Okay, so my next favorite stop of theirs, it's several stops. and they're just interviewing people. They go out to the woods to talk to turpentine workers who strip the bark off pine trees.
Wow.
They go to the riverbanks and interview dock workers. They talk to voodoo women because Zora is very interested in voodoo and hoodoo and root magic. And they talk to a woman who's in the process of buying a gun that she says she's going to use to shoot her husband. They're like, okay. And they just go along with her for the ride. So they're asking all these people to tell them what are called lies or stories that their grandmothers would have told to each other when they were enslaved. Some of these lies, they're like the story of why God made Black people Black, which was that we showed up to a meeting on CP time, and then there was some confusion and we got what we got. Or there are these, that's one of them. Or there are a ton of stories about the tricks that a slave named John would play on his master. These are very popular. And they're like, give us all of them. And Zora's big worry is that if I don't get these and write them down, then by 2024, 5, 6, no one will know these basic stories that we all know. So that's what they're doing. And what's happening is that Black people are not forthcoming with their stories, especially the ones about their drama. And in part, what Zora has noticed is that Black people recognize this kind of unusual amount of interest that white people have in their private interactions.
Yes.
And so Black people have started, one, they're very protective. They're like, why do you want these stories? What is this weird obsession with what we talk about? And also they started to use language in this way where they change the meanings of words. And it's leading a lot of white anthropologists to believe that Black people can't speak English properly, like don't have the intellectual capacity to do it. And Black people are like, yep, that's right. But Zora is like, no, they're camouflaging. This is a tactic. And I want to document it and use it as additional proof.
That also from other folklore traditions, that's very like elegua, like the trickster, the very like, we're not, you can't quite capture, you don't really know, but this is also opening a path to liberation.
Yes, exactly.
The trickster is also the one who opens the path.
So I've read a lot of her folklore. I have to tell you about my favorite kind of folklore, which are toasts, the tradition of toasts and toasting. Have you ever heard of I'd never heard of this before. Okay. So toasts started in Africa, and then, Black people are enslaved. They tell toast to pass time on the plantation. And by 1927, they're just a thing that Black people do when they get together. It's very, very popular. They're these long adventure stories. They're made up and very fantastical. And they have to be funny. They have to rhyme. You got to be able to deliver it to a beat. And in a toast, the protagonist is always, this is how we are. We've always been this way.
This is how we are. Be like, let's up the ante a little bit.
Yes, exactly. Don't just tell me a story. I want, give me some beats.
Give it a beat,
So,
make it
give
rhyme.
it a beat. Give me a beat. In a toast, the protagonist is always a Black man facing insurmountable, unbelievable, life and death odds. He'll never get out of this, but he always wins in the end. He has to. Those are the rules. And people, when they were telling toasts, they're trying to shock one another and make each other laugh. So the stories are so raunchy. It's like tons of sex and drugs and cursing. They're so dirty. I can't read most of them on here. I want kids to be able to hear the show, but they're wild. And it's just like, this is what the slaves were doing to pass the time. This is what Black folks were doing during Jim Crow. This is just, they're trying to make each other laugh. So there's a lot of different genres of toast, but the most popular ones are about the Titanic. So I will tell you one of those.
I already love it.
The Titanic sank in 1912. Black people, some percentage of us, just laughed and laughed and laughed. And we said anybody could have told those white people that boat was going to sink. It's too big. You were talking wild to God. Of course it sank. And so the most popular toast, the largest number of toasts are about the Titanic and how obviously it was going to sink.
I love it.
So one of my favorites is, in a nutshell, there's a man who's working the Titanic, a Black man, and his name is Boiler Room Sam. And this is not raunchy, but it's just so funny. He realizes that the boat's going to sink immediately. He tries to warn the captain. The captain says all this racist stuff to him, tells him he's dumb, tells him to leave. Sam goes, he gets all the Black people together. They have a meeting, as we do. Everybody's like, obviously, this boat is going to sink. Everybody's like, yeah, we know. So they jump off the side of the boat and they swim to safety. And that is why no Black people died in the sinking of the Titanic.
Ooh, not because we weren't there.
Not because we weren't there. Because we knew when we got off.
Y'all.
Yeah.
I love it. I just love that it is this tradition of like, we're such keen observers of the world and of culture. And we've seen things so many times before and it lives in our blood and our bones. And so we can sit back and be like, I could have told y'all that was going to happen. You didn't listen to me though, but you know.
In the rocking chair too. I can picture it like in the rocking
Always
chair.
in the rocking chair. Could have told y'all that was going to. In fact, I did, but y'all didn't listen, but okay.
Nobody wanted to listen to me.
Nobody wanted to listen to me.
Oh, unsinkable?
Okay. Well, we'll see about that, you know.
So Zora and Langston, they've been hijinksing it up all across the South collecting stories. And maybe Zora's like, Langston, what's up with you and Alan? You need to tell me what's going on. And in my movie version of this, they are riding along in Sassy Susie. And he's like, all right, let me start from the beginning. James Mercer Langston Hughes was born in Joplin, Missouri. He thinks it's 1901, but it's 1902. I just had to put this in here because every single Black person in history doesn't know when they were born. I'm sure there's lots of like reasons, but just nobody ever knows. All my research is like, maybe this year, maybe that year.
But you know what? Sorry, I have to say this. This is also very African.
Oh, true.
So I used to live for a while in Namibia. I remember people were like, this is Mekulu, which means grandmother. They were like, we don't really know when she was born. She could be like, people would be like, she's 126 years old. People would be like, she's 94. Like, nobody knows the woman is old and she's bent over, but she will still cuss you out and kill a snake. Like, this bitch is bad.
So he's Black, Jewish, Native American. His mom is descended from DC's Black elite. So Langston's mom and his grandmother raised him between Lawrence, Kansas, Lincoln, Illinois, and Cleveland, Ohio. They're pretty solidly middle class, and Langston's always the only Black kid in class. So he's experiencing a lot of racism, and he's pretty lonely, but he does have poetry, which is his first love. And in particular, he loves the poems of Walt Whitman, which are written in very plain language that anybody can follow. And his style and his like language and his imagery, that becomes a real guide for Langston in the beginning. As he gets older, he spends some time in Mexico with his dad, where he convinces his dad to give him the money to go to Columbia in New York City. And that's where Langston discovers Harlem, and he falls in forever love. He loves the energy and the poetry and the music and the theater and the Blackness, but not Columbia because they're so racist.
Right.
He's not like Zora with it. He's like, this is horrible. I'm out. So then he drops out. He takes a job on a trading ship and he sails to Europe and Africa, where he works as a cook, a waiter, a doorman, a bunch of other odd jobs to survive. And all the while, he's working on a book of poetry about the everyman and the struggles that they are going through to get by. Now, as we've mentioned before, Langston is very hot, and people are literally writing letters to their friends being like, you need to do whatever you need to do to look at this man because he's gorgeous.
Yes.
Somebody writes Alan Locke, and they say he also happens to be overseas at this time, and it's before the opportunity dinner. And they're like, have you seen Langston Hughes? So Alan gets a hold of his picture, and then he writes his friend back, and he's like, this is a brown, virile god. Because Alan's also gay.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I feel like the Alan thing, are they lovers? That's what I was giving for me.
This is what happens.
I'm glad this is confirmed. Okay.
Alan starts writing Langston these very flirty letters.
Ooh, I love it.
And Langston is a huge flirt, so he flirts back.
Of course he does.
And Langston's in his 20s. Alan's in his 40s. Alan's like, we need to meet up in real life. And Langston's like, oh my God, you're so smart. I just like be too nervous to meet up with you. You're too like gorgeous and handsome and brilliant. I can't.
Oh my God.
Alan keeps pressing. Langston's like, no. And then Alan's like, listen, I'm a philosophy professor at Howard and I could probably get you in. And so Langston's like, okay, we can meet up now.
Bet.
So they spend a weekend together in Italy.
Oh,
I know, right? A weekend in Italy by the sea, and they're near the water.
Come on.
So They have this beautiful weekend, and then Alan is like, okay, so we're boyfriends now, right? And Langston's like, Alan, you're so cute. No, Alan.
You see all these pretty Italian boys. I'm
Exactly.
everybody's
You
lover.
really
Like,
think we're going to be, no, grow up.
Yeah.
So then Langston gets robbed of his money and his passport, and Alan just leaves him in Italy to figure it out. He's so mad. It takes Langston months to get back to America. When he gets back to the U.S., Langston moves in with his mom, who's now in D.C., and he tries to get into Howard on his own, but he can't afford it, and Alan won't help. So he works as a busboy. He's writing poetry. He's spending a lot of time with the Black elite, his mom's friends. He hates it. Really rich, learned people make him very uncomfortable. But he manages to publish his book of poems and names it The Weary Blues, and it's a hit. It catapults him into fame. And Alan puts their differences aside and invites him to the opportunity dinner, where Langston is awarded enough money to finish college at the historically Black Lincoln University. Then he starts touring and reading his poetry live, and everyone is just like, oh my God, you're such a great poet. We can't wait for all the poetry to come. But he's thinking, I want to tell stories in every single way. I want to write short stories. I want to write novels. I want to hear my poems set to music, and I want to write a play. And Zora, maybe she has not shared this with him yet. In my movie version, she has not. But Zora really wants to take all this folklore that she's been collecting and turn it into a play so that people can really live in the dialect and the rhythm and just all the energy of these scenes that she's a part of. And it's a big, big goal of hers. And she loves Broadway. She loves the theater. And Langston's mom had been an actress, and he loves Broadway too. But in my movie, they don't know that about each other yet. So now we're going to go to their last stop number 3, which is just a fun one. So they're driving through Georgia, and they're kind of ready to go back to New York. And then they hear that the singer, Bessie Smith, known as the Empress of the Blues, is having a concert in Macon, Georgia. And they're like, we have to detour. We have to go there. We are broke, but we have to go. We can't miss Bessie. So Bessie Smith had toured with Ma Rainey, who taught her business management and crowd control techniques. Both of these served her well because Bessie now has a hit song out called Downhearted Blues, and she loves being a star. She is staying up late. She is drinking. She is partying. She is hooking up with the ladies. She's living her best life. Zora and Langston go to her show. So we're picturing Angela Bassett and Aaron Pierre just dancing the night away. Bessie's singing and dancing. Everybody's having so much fun. This sweaty juke joint in Macon, Georgia.
Yes.
They love it. After the show, they get an invite to the after party at the Colored Hotel in town, which I just have to say, people, it's just oh, segregation is just bad. But which party do you want to go to? You want to go to the...
No.
So they go to the Colored Hotel in town. Everybody's getting down. Bessie, a bunch of the other colored performers and artists she's traveling with, they're all there. So I'm imagining drinks are flowing. Maybe somebody is playing live music. Maybe people are telling toasts because Bessie grew up poor in Tennessee and she really liked raunchy talk. So I'm sure she would have had a few. Zora and Langston probably felt right at home. Unlike the old heads, WB, Allen, even Dr. Carver, Booker T, they see moments like these as dirty, but Zora and Langston are this is high art. This is worthy of praise. And maybe they talked about the pressure and the motivation they felt knowing that everyone back in Harlem was watching them and wondering what they're going to do next. And maybe it should be something with all this folklore that they'd collected. And so in the movie version of this scene, this is when they turn to each other and they're like, you know what? We should write a play together. For him, the events that follow, he'll call them a painful marker of the end of the Harlem Renaissance. And for her, the events that follow, she'll call the biggest regrets of her life. That's next time on Our Ancestors Were Messy.
No! You're going to leave me here? Who gets to do the next one?
I mean, you could do it.
I want to do it. You going to leave me hanging like this? Hell no.
And that's our show. You can follow us on Instagram at NPR Code Switch. If email is more your thing, ours is codeswitch@npr.org. And subscribe to the podcast on the NPR app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to the Code Switch newsletter by going to npr.org/Code Switch-newsletter. Just a reminder that signing up for Code Switch Plus is a great way to support our show and public media. And we get to listen to every episode sponsor-free. So please go find out more at plus.npr.org/Code Switch. This episode was written, researched, and produced by Nicole Hill. It was edited for Code Switch by Courtney Stein. Our engineer was Robert Rodriguez. And a shout out to the rest of the Code Switch massive: Christina Cala, Xavier Lopez, Jess Kung, Leah Danella, Dahlia Mortada, Vera Lynn Williams, and Jean Denby. I'm B.A. Parker. Hydrate.
This message comes from Jerry. Many people are overpaying on car insurance. Why? Switching providers can be a pain. Jerry helps make the process painless. Jerry is the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/NPR. This message comes from Homes.com. What kind of programs does this school have? How are the test scores? These are all things parents ask when they home shop. That's why each listing on Homes.com includes extensive reports on local schools. Homes.com. We've done your homework. This message comes from Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. They offer premium wireless plans for less, and all plans include high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and nationwide coverage. See for yourself at mintmobile.com/switch.